Hello, and welcome to another episode of Resilience Rock Sales. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Samantha J. Brunskill. Samantha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, congratulations on the success of the Illuminate Summit last week. I had the massive FOMO. I really appreciate the invitation to be there. And oh my gosh, I wish I was able to travel at the moment because it just looked like such a magical room to be in. And what a great way to celebrate your birthday as well.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Like we had 100 people in the room. It was just the music was pumping. We had Lisa Messenger there. She'd been in events for over 20 years and she's like, this is literally in a league of its own. So we're so excited to be running the next one in September. And we've already sold, I think, 30% of the tickets. So that's good feedback.
Oh, and that's always the best feedback, isn't it? When you've got people that are like, okay, I want to come back, or I want to bring a friend. And
Yeah.
so yeah, well done on just backing that up. And yeah, Lisa's been around doing these things for so long. I remember I first saw her speak. I think it was at an Entourage event, one of the unconventions back in the day. It must have been like 10 years ago. And I definitely fangirled a little bit over her story and her whole approach. So what awesome props to get that feedback there. And well done on just the lineup you assembled. And I just think it looked like just such an epic event, and all the success for the next one. And I'll make sure that when we share this that we can pop a link in all of the descriptions and stuff so people can find their way to the one in September. So yeah, well done. It's just really nice to see. Yeah, we've all been to events, so many events over the years, and to be able to actually put together something that's a little bit different and that next level stuff, and that you've raised the bar for all of us now. Yeah. So where I'd really love to start with you is it'd be just really cool to give people a little bit of a background on your story, what led you to be where you are today, and known for Illuminator, and also that you're so well known for putting together luxury brands and personal branding and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it'd be really cool just to give us your backstory and just what led you to be where you are today.
Yeah, so I'm from country New South Wales, so my roots are in the country. I grew up on a farm there. But I guess I always felt bigger than where I was living in Wagga Wagga. Ever since I was really, really little, like I had these very big visions of the impact that I wanted to make. I'd often, the other kids would be off running around playing, and I'd be like thinking about, being a prime minister or being a speaker and watching talks and things like that. And so I guess that was one of the biggest challenges I had in the very early stages of my life was not knowing where I belonged in the world and struggling with, do I be somebody else to fit in and get social approval, mum and dad's approval, or like, where do I belong? Because I couldn't really see any reflections of what I knew I wanted to become inside. So by the time I was, I guess, 16, 18, like that started to create an identity challenge for me. I went into all the wrong paths, like drug abuse, alcohol abuse, promiscuity, like all the things. But that by the time I was 19 years old, I really found my purpose. And that's when I remember seeing on the front page of the newspaper, The Forgotten Suburb. And I guess when I saw that, The Forgotten Suburb, I guess that was that, belonging struggle I was going through. So I took over my family's property development and I didn't have a business degree, nothing else really. And I turned it into a multi-8-figure company by the time I was 22 years old. And I'd say entrepreneurship really saved my life because as I was struggling with depression and all these things through those years, it was always about being led by that purpose larger than myself that really gave me a sense of meaning, fulfillment, and a sense of belonging in the world that I can be whatever I want as an entrepreneur. I can create whatever I want. And that's what really helped me to get started and find myself in the beginning.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And I can totally relate to so many of those angles, and particularly the going down the wrong paths as a teen. Yeah, definitely found myself in some of those places as well. But yeah, being able to find, as you said, a purpose bigger. And that's something that I think everyone needs. Is we need to have something to pull us into the future rather than getting stuck, or, beating yourself up about what you haven't done or what didn't go right. Um, so yeah, well done on that. But I'd love to dig into. So you said you went into your parent, like into the family business at that age. So did you have any involvement in the business prior to that, or was that was your sort of first foray into getting involved in it?
Yeah, it was my first foray. Like at the time, they were just earning, six figures a year from it. And I guess I had the opportunity. I got in the top 6% of Australia in my HSC, but I didn't really feel like university was the path for me. So I took a gap year for a year. Then dad, I was like having a bit of a breakdown, to be honest. Like, what am I going to do? Dad's like, you know what? Here. He threw me a phone book. He put a desk in the corner of my bedroom and he's like, just give it a crack, call people and make it work. Mind you, I had been working since 14 years old. So from 14 years old, I'd been in the bakery. I had been in retail. I'd been working 20 plus hours a week. And every time, even at 14 years old, they were like promoting me, like, we want you to be assistant manager. So I guess I had this real hunger. I have a hunger, I have a passion to want to like be the best. And I love people. So my mind has just always naturally been quite business savvy. And so it was just all about, rather than having a textbook to tell me what needed to be done, it was like, what does my heart know would be a really good service? And I just did that. And I just was really good at being able to connect what people's needs are with the outcomes and just learn along the way, which is good.
And so what was it like being, as you said, thrown the phone book and the phone? Because I think that, we're talking to a lot of people today that are in sales, and even people that have been in sales for a really long time, there's still this apprehension to pick up the phone. So what was it like at that age to just get thrown into that? What were those first few calls like?
That's one of the beautiful things being 19 is like you just like think anything's possible. You have no evidence that things can be hard. So even whilst I called the whole book and everybody hung up on me pretty much except one builder, actually, I didn't care because I had such a stubbornness in the power of decision at such a young age. Like nobody will stop me. No one else has been able to make this property development work, but I will. And so I had such this like conviction in myself and such a rebel. And I think that's what resilience really is. Like, no matter how hard life gets, like you just say, nothing will stop me. And I loved the challenge. It was so tough, but I think also I was led from trauma, really wanting to prove something to my dad. So it really did, that really did drive me to go the extra mile. But I loved getting those. I think once you decide to be the person that you decide the outcome you will create, and you stop at nothing to create it, I've learned that you can do that if you have the right mindset. And so these days I set outrageous goals, but it doesn't matter what's happening in my current circumstances. It doesn't deter me from the outcome because I've just chosen. I decide I want to create that, and I'll do whatever it takes until it's here. And that ability to persevere, and I just had that as an ingrained thing in me from a young age.
And did you have any demonstration of that as you were growing up? Or is it just one of those things where you're just like, I have no idea where this came from, but it was just there and it was always there?
When I was really little, my dad would take me to all these business meetings. And so we would be on the farm and he would be nonstop talking to me about life and philosophy. And he would take me to the business meetings and he would tell me about it before and tell me about it after. And a lot of people say to me, like, you're so like your dad. And I think that I just saw my dad. When you're living on a farm, there's droughts,
Mm.
there's uncontrollable circumstances. And so I guess I just constantly saw him being a model that it didn't matter what happened, he had to adapt. He didn't care how he felt, he just got up and made it happen. And that ability to just not be complaining or making excuses, he was definitely a really amazing model for that.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I have so much admiration and respect for people that make a living off the land. Because again, there's so many things that are totally out of your control. And my boyfriend's family, they were like 150 years family farm type thing as well. And also one of our previous interviews, shout out to Ben Angel, he grew up on a family farm in South Australia as well. And so it's been really interesting just to hear these lessons that have come from that life. And I don't think that there's probably anything else that's going to be as harsh in the lessons as well. And I guess the highs are high, but the lows are just incredibly challenging.
Yeah, I've had people say to me like property development and farming, two of the hardest industries. And I was like, wow, perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and also too, I love that you said that your dad spoke to you about all that sort of stuff when you were little and took you along to those meetings. Like, what a crazy apprenticeship, I guess, when you look back on it as well, and those things because as you're little, you're such a sponge, aren't you? And being able to absorb those things, and at the time, probably you were just like, okay, this probably doesn't mean a lot then, but do you find now that there's so many of those experiences and stuff that you sort of are able to draw back on as well?
Yeah, I am. And one of the things my dad spoke about at such a young age was, surrounding yourself with what he called your grandparents. But I guess Indigenous community would call it your wisdom keepers. And so I haven't got a traditional learning, but I have learned experience from him, my grandparents. I spent a lot of time around them. And that was amazing because my family, we've got 100 years of farming behind. And so it's been about, building that generational wealth. And I think that's really missing in today's society is we don't have wisdom keepers. We have a lot of split marriages. There's a lot of division in that way. So definitely understanding where my family came from, him telling me they came from the war, they didn't have shoes. That created such a level of humility for me to know shit. I want to build more from what we have already built. And that's why I also just got started at 14. I was like, let's go. It's really been one of the most life-changing pieces for me.
And I love too seeing that you went back to your old high school recently to
Yeah,
go and do all those talks. So what was that like?
it was so rewarding. Yeah, it was so rewarding for me. I want to give my time to as many school children as I can because I believe that if we don't have a role model, we often need a role model in order to have the confidence to be able to do what we know inside, a vision. But if we don't have that role model and we don't have enough self-esteem, then we may live a life where we settle or play it safe. And so I guess I just want to keep showing people that like I came from Wagga and and then I decided to leave Wagga. I've traveled the world. It was so rewarding to see, yeah, the children there and for them, their eyes, because some of them are like, I wanted to write a book. A person came up to me after and was like, I'm going to write a book. I was like, well, here's my publisher, get writing. And I think that that's so beautiful to have that optimism and to know that they can do it too.
It's one of those yeah, I've definitely heard it. There's that line, "You can't be what you can't see."
Yeah.
And I guess that's the thing is too, you would have found it probably, growing up, particularly in a country area. I think just growing up in Australia, being a young woman, the whole tall poppy thing, there's the thing where it's like, "Oh my gosh, don't stand out, don't say you're good at anything." So it's been really good that you've been able to, again, model that, and particularly for those kids, and I think particularly for the young women that were in those audiences, because, you sat where they were
Mhm.
there how many years ago, and so it's amazing, I think the seeds that you've planted
Mhm.
there, and then hopefully they follow you, and, I'm sure that you're gonna get messages over the years as well because, like, that's what's cool. I know I avoided speaking to school kids and stuff for a really long time, because I guess partly I found it a bit intimidating, like, I'd rather speak to a room of 1,000 corporates than to to 100 13, 14-year-olds or something like that.
Mhm.
But it is interesting when you do those and then years and years later, you do get those messages and stuff like that. So I think that's gonna be really cool in 10 years' time when you actually start to get those messages from those people going, "Oh my gosh, this is where I am because you came and showed me that it was possible." So, you know, that's huge props for being able to do that, and I think now that you've done that, it's just, what a gift, and being able to go and do those wherever you go is just, pop in and share those stories, which is super cool.
Mhm.
So going back to where you were when you got stuck into the business and, you're able to transform that and, as you said, go from 6 figures to multi 8 figures. At what point did you sort of go, "Okay, that I've done what I can here," and then moved on, or do you still have some connection to the business, today?
Yeah, I still have some connection to it now, but I stepped down as CEO when I was 22 after winning the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award because I realized that I think that I just felt like I was here for more. I also felt a level of emptiness and loneliness, and it didn't feel right anymore. Marshall Thurber, who's a personal development mentor, he talks about purpose like you follow a path, you get to a point, then you go, this isn't it, is it? And then you go to another point, and it's kind of like this unfolding. And so it was then that I realized, you know what, I need to know what actually fulfills me because this isn't anymore. And I began over the next 6 years to travel the world. I learned from the leading authorities, neuroscience, shamanism. I went to Peru, South Africa. And I guess I just wanted to know, well, who's Sam when she's not this person in the world? And I'm not on media every week. I'm not making all this money. I'm not trying to prove myself. I'm not trying to please my parents. I'm not, Brene Brown talks about pleasing, proving, performing, and I forget the last one right now. And so I realized I was really led from external validation, not necessarily from wholeness. And over those next 6 years, I really began to understand how to be whole in me, separate to my external accolades. And from that place, I really got to see, I guess, some of the trauma that was driving me before. And one of those parts was about being sexually abused as a young girl. And when I remembered that, I guess my whole life from there just took on a whole new meaning because I wanted to instead protect the next generation of women, of little girls. And so now my business is more about, using business to end child sex trafficking on the planet, domestic violence, and all of these things. And that's what I'm really passionate about now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely relatable, isn't it? When you realize that sometimes that you sort of been, yeah, driven from a trauma, whether it's proving something or, being bigger than that or whatever. And then I think, as you said, once you actually go down that path and I guess connect to it and then be able to heal that and then move on from that and go, okay, and then what's next? But I think also too having that purpose of being able to go, well, what is it that's bigger than me? What is the difference that I can make, especially as you start to build a business, make money, have a profile, and then then looking at, well, okay, how can I then lend that to something that is going to then make a bigger impact? And I really love that. There's just, so much horrific stuff that's going on in the world, particularly around trafficking and keeping kids safe and things like that. So it's something that's close to my heart as well. So it's been really good to see that that's what you've chosen to lean into as well. And then so after going off on all of these amazing adventures and getting to know who you are, because I think that's a big thing, isn't it? Is that so much we do, as you said, looking for that external validation. And I'm sure our listeners I think everyone has had a moment where you've realized that that's what's driven you. I know personally I have as well. And, sometimes it'll be going and entering a business ward and sometimes you'll go, okay, is this something that is right for me and my business right now? Or is this 5-year-old Stacey going, Mum, Dad, be proud of me? And those type of things. So I'm sure, again, our listeners will have those moments too. And then, so when did you know on that journey it was time to go, okay, it's time to stop going and seeking and looking and all that type of stuff. It's time to then come back and then create the next step of the business, the next step of your life. What was that process like for you?
I was in Peru and I remember being on a plant medicine journey. I was on ayahuasca, if anybody knows what that is. And I remember when I was on ayahuasca, she said, like, you can stop now. Like, you are enough. You are lovable. And I was like, I'd been going into my darkness again and again and again. And she's like, just like, you're good. And I remember after that, I did a Wishuma journey next. And in that Wishuma journey, I guess I saw myself for the first time. I saw that I was imperfect, but I could be lovable in my imperfections rather than chasing this like perfect idea of who I thought I needed to be to, I guess, have this pain go away. And when I really saw myself for the very first time on this retreat, on this Wishuma journey, and people were reflecting back who I was like, I'm that? Like, I guess I just never seen or recognized myself. So that's why I was so hung up on being recognized in the external world, because I actually couldn't even see me. And when I had that experience, I got to just then take that. I got to each day treat myself differently, more as for who I am and as a valuable person. And so that's when I then decided, okay, I want to really help others more. It was really when I stopped needing anything else from others, because I'd really become the source of all my top needs. The need to feel special, the need to be seen, the need to be recognized. Like, I remember writing out my top 5 needs that make me feel secure. And rather that being linked to business, it was about like me doing that for me at the start of my day, feeling whole. And then from there, bringing that overflow out into the world.
And again, it's that whole thing, isn't it, about once you do recognize what those needs are and where you can do that yourself, it's so powerful.
Mhm.
Because again, just even in your business life and personal relationships, then you actually come to those experiences, as you said, from a place of wholeness, not from a place of lack or need or any of those things. And I went through a similar process with a relationship coach that I worked with years ago. And it was one of those things that it was like just super, super transformational. So yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up as well. And I think again, people that we're speaking to today who are in sales, or they might be a sales professional, or they might be an entrepreneur or a small business owner that needs to drive sales for their own businesses. But yeah, if they can then take some time to work out where they are already whole, take a leaf out of your book. It may not be having to venture on working with shamans and plant medicine journeys on the other side of the world, but some of these things we can lean into at home. But being able to then come at their sales from a place of wholeness rather than a place of lack. What difference do you feel that makes for somebody that is in sales?
I call it recognizing that you are the prize. So masculinity is all about chasing. And a lot of the time, like, I've been in sales for a long time, but a lot of the time it's about chasing. It's about really, kind of being pushy, being very outwards with your energy. But when you understand feminine sales, you are in this lean back energy. You recognize you are the prize. And so with that understanding, I believe in designing a sales process that is around a buyer who already has problem awareness, who already has solution awareness, and are instead self-led. So they have a level of self-leadership and a level of empowerment that they find and buy. If you think about a luxury shop, when you go in there, nobody is chasing. They're all in lean back energy. They trust you are empowered and you're self-led and that you're going to buy. And so it's definitely about choosing the right buyer and designing your sales process around presupposing people are empowered and self-led.
I love that approach. That's super interesting because obviously, like, you hear so much about the sales process about you got to go into discovery and then you've got to find out what their problems are, and sometimes they don't know what their problems are, and then you need to then connect the solution and do all that sort of stuff. So I'd love for you to go a bit further into that. So what does that look like from a seller's perspective? How do they create that?
So first of all, it's all about choosing the right niche. Because if you go for a buyer that's not problem aware, not solution aware, then your marketing is going to have to educate them. And that could take 3 to 12 months. But in my world, people find me and within 2 hours go from, I didn't even know you, I just found you, no cause, and I've just paid you 25K to 100K. But the only reason that they do that is because of the niche. They're already problem aware. They're already solution aware. And then based on the beliefs that I have, I believe that somebody can find and buy at a premium very quickly. So I've designed my sales process around a selling via DM, and it's got a few different 4 steps of different questions back and forth. But I've designed my sales process around a buyer like me. I actually hate sales calls, and I already know what I want. And I want to know as quick as possible, can I get the information I need? And so when you design your sales process around somebody that's like that with that mindset, then it's just simply knowing how to get their inquiry in. And then first step, build rapport. Second step, qualify it. Third step, identify their need. What's their urgent 7-day, 30-day win? And then link that need to your offer. Get the yes before price always, and then have a quick move bonus. Amazing. So with everything you've heard here today, is this a yes? Yeah, it is. Great. Well, if you move today, here it is. And again, there's no chasing. There's not even follow-up. See, there's something so beautiful in they'll actually feel your energy that it's conversational. It's all about relationship. You bring your personality into it. I use so many GIFs, emojis, and that's all about understanding your brand. What's your uniqueness factor? Like, I'm all about pandas and bears and I have all these funny GIFs, but that is so authentic to me. And so when it's like that, and then, that's how then they convert.
That's so interesting. And again, just so different because, again, so much of sales is like, oh, overcoming the objection. And, that type of stuff, which, again, I'd love to hear more about
Yeah.
your take on that
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah. Objections become irrelevant when you have a strong brand. And your strong brand is about recognizing your story and how to turn your story into a personal brand. Because people don't have the price is irrelevant, the competition becomes irrelevant. Every single objection becomes irrelevant when you tap into their emotions, desire, and imagination. And that's all going to come when they hear your story. You become the proof of what they've always wanted to see as possible. When I talk about the trauma I've gone through, people are like, what the hell? I've gone through trauma, but I never knew that I could actually create all that too. And so they just find any resource, to be able to make it happen. So build a strong brand around your personal story. And there's a certain way I teach to design your personal story that links your offer. And when you have your story linked to your offer with your main framework, then it's all connected. They'll just know, great, I'll make it happen. Also, finance helps. So I do obviously luxury offers, but it only costs them $80 to $200 a week to work with me, even though it's 25 or 100K. And so teaching them about finance and the power of borrowing to borrow somebody else's money to get ahead. My dad really taught me about how to leverage debt. It's been a huge part of his success. So also that as well.
I'm sure that a lot of people here have just had their minds blown, just going, oh my gosh, this sounds so much easier
Yeah.
than, that whole, oh gosh, it's a numbers game and I've just got to go out and, as you said, chase.
Yeah.
And it being competitive, because I think that's the other element of sales is that, there is an element of competition. But I guess if people are working for a company and there are a whole lot of sales reps selling the same product side by side and things like that, then I guess there's always going to be an element of that.
Well, I mean, the thing is that each of those salesperson, the biggest thing that they've got is their personality and identifying what's their uniqueness factor. What are 3 stories that I talk about micro BA stories. So think about your clients, their frustration, their fear, or their dream or their desire, and then come up with a story that's connected to your own life and figure out how you can use storytelling to connect. And when you can understand how to use stories for selling, everything's irrelevant because there's just such a deep level of trust and emotional connection. And so tap into that.
That's cool, just to really get yourself to stand out from the sea of sameness. And I guess especially some of these people, there might be 100 reps in the company that are all doing, essentially selling the same product. So I really like that you flagged that as how to do that. And also you mentioned earlier there, a big part of that is really identifying your niche, or for our American friends, your niche. And so I'd love to know, how do you then help your clients then discover that? Because I think it's one of those things that we always get told from the very beginning, got to really hone in on your market, the old inch wide, mile deep. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things for a lot of us. And I know personally, it's something that I've really struggled with over the years as well. So how do you get people to actually be able to find that?
I think, first of all, it's about stepping out of the commodity mainstream market business world. You're not selling products and services. Start to think that you're building a movement. And if you were to think about you're building a movement, who would you love hanging out with the most, that have the most money, that you are the most skilled and you enjoy working with the most? And if you think about filling a room with that movement based on those criteria, I think that's a really great place to start, because you want to be thinking like, who would I love to work with over the next 5 to 10 years rather than just the short term? Because, for example, I'd love to work with children, but they don't have the most money to work with me. So that's why it's money, enjoyment, and that you're the most skilled to work with. And I often say, it's all about your story. So nobody else is like you out there. You have a unique story with a set of circumstances and skills that makes you equipped to work with exactly you as a client. So when you say you are the niche, you're the niche, you yourself are, and then you want to try and find where somebody is like 1 to 3 steps behind where you are in your own journey. And then you want to identify obviously their immediate frustrations, fears, and then their long-term dreams and desires. It's a little bit different if it's like a building company or something like that. But again, really honing into your own story, like maybe there's family stories about building a home or just how you can bring your culture and your story into what it is that you're doing.
Wow, I think we've all got a lot of homework from that, haven't we? Oh my gosh. Yeah, so this is really cool. And there's elements of all this, and I'm sure a lot of this is what I love too, is that so often that we've heard elements of this before. Like individually, all of these little components are often nothing new, but it's just the way that you've assembled them it's just brought a new lens to it. So I definitely know that I'll be making a few notes after our chat for sure. Also too, I'd love to go back to the theme of the podcast is around resilience and sales. And you've mentioned resilience yourself a few times. So what role do you feel that resilience has in sales, especially if you're looking at it from your approach to sales, that being the prize, all of this sort of stuff. So what role do you feel that it has in that aspect of sales?
I think Hormozy said if he was going to train a new sales team, he wouldn't be celebrating how many yeses they're getting. He'd be celebrating how many no's. And I think once you become the type of person where you are so resilient, you're so secure in yourself around rejection that you can actually celebrate that many no's, that you will just take bigger risks than anybody. And so I think resiliency is important for risk taking. Hormozy also said, what separates entrepreneurs from the average employee is that an entrepreneur is just willing to take bigger risks. They're not smarter. They don't have more. They're not special in some way. The only thing is that they're, I say, more resilient to risk and the up and down and the noise and the challenges. So I think it's critical for that. If you can become the person who's not celebrating your cash collected for that month, but how many attempts you got, and you actually become the person who wants to get more no's and more no's, well, ultimately your yeses are just going to grow as a consequence. And I think when you can become that secure in yourself, that's literally what will just take you into a league of your own. When everybody else is going, I'll do 10, you do 100 reps. And obviously you're going to get way more no's, but you're also going to get way more yeses. And if you always make your standard being 10 times bigger than every other person, and you're secure enough to come with the no's that are going to come with that, then that's the way.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Again, I think we often, as you said, celebrate measuring the wrong metrics, isn't it? There's those vanity metrics and stuff like that, isn't there? And then there's the ones that really actually move the needle. So I really like that you've highlighted that. And so also too with the element that you're talking about going out and doing 10x what the other people are doing. And with your approach to selling and building a personal brand and stuff like that, do you still have an element of outreach involved in that? Or are you sort of more trying to build an attraction model?
It's mostly attraction and partnerships. So the outreach is more that we've got partners and relationships that do the outreach, but we're not necessarily doing it. So it's all about building that ecosystem and partnership and creating win-win-win. So where do my clients go before me? Where do they go after me? How can I now create a formalized partnership, understand their vision over the next 1 to 10 years, and then create win-wins around that for everybody? And then I did that in the property development. That's actually how we got ahead. I created a building hub and said, we are going to have a 6-star seamless customer experience. We even took people up in a helicopter flight above their land, took a photo, and, I had 100% close rate because it was all about how can I bring wow factor, right? And so, these are some of the ways that we bring wow factor through the customer experience, which then adds more attraction because then they're telling 2 to 3 of their friends, and then we incentivize them in that way.
Oh my gosh, so many ideas. So many ideas, which is super, super cool. So I'd love to hear a bit about what does your business look like today? You've done a couple of books and stuff like that now as well. Actually, how many are you up to now? How many books are you
I've
up to now?
I've got 3 solo, 3 co-authored, and my 7th one's coming in October in New York, another co-authored one.
Oh, that's cool. So obviously books are a part of personal branding as well. And I know as a speaker, that's something that does set you apart. If someone's looking between a number of options, then somebody that has a book is important. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what does your business look like today?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's like the Samantha J Group. So we've got Illuminator Society. That's really where I'm helping business owners to grow to 7 to 8 figures. And then we've got the startup arm of that, where we're helping people that are at 0 or $10,000 months to scale beyond that. We've also got an agency where we do photo shoots and styling and really, websites, social media, and all of that. And I'm also in partnership with different people. So in partnership with their companies. And we've got about 5 different other businesses that we want to build out. We have a very ambitious goal to create 1 billion philanthropic impacts around the world. So I guess really this next stage is more about me inviting other business owners into Illuminator Society and me partnering with their company. I believe that like 1 plus 1 can equal 10. So alone, we are brilliant and we will succeed. But when we 2 of us come together in our personal power, we can 10x what we are here to create. And that's really what I'm trying to do now is rather than even me being on all the stages, I'm getting my clients on them. We're going to Dubai, Texas, and doing an Australian global tour next year. So I'm trying to find people that want to be the lighthouses, so we can reach as many people across the globe as possible.
I love that you mentioned the lighthouses. I've got my lighthouse. Look, it's something that I think that the lighthouse thing is awesome. And again, being able to be that beacon to other people. And but also too, I think what I loved about the lighthouse, and I reflected so much on it over the last few years with so many distractions in the world and so many things that you get fired up about and all that type of stuff. And again, it's just going, well, really a lighthouse, our job as lighthouses is just to shine the light. We don't have to go and rescue people. We don't have to do all that. And I think that just fits in so well to what you've described, as you said about the Illuminator model, but also too, then being able to share that personal story, and then the people that are attracted to that will come into it. But I've also heard that the brightest lights attract the most bugs. And so I was wondering with that, and as you put yourself out there and stuff like that, have you encountered some of those experiences as well, and how did you deal with them?
Yeah, I really affected my mental health the last 18 months because I really did get a lot of it. And not only did I lose family members, friends, I had really hard things happen with clients who I'd helped to give really great results to. And it really took a lot. It really almost broke me. It was the only time I actually thought about giving up because I just didn't know how to. I just felt that the more I shine next, I'm going to get abused. So what had to happen was I had to become more, I guess, activate my inner bitch. It's the only way. I'm such a nice, easygoing, so now I have had to find my fuck off, inside of me. I've had to find my no. I've had to find the part of me that's like, this isn't okay, be better in my boundaries, and all of these different things, the walking power of a high value woman. Because a lot of the time I didn't know how to walk away from people and situations that were very toxic. And I thought I was the bad person in that. My kind of trauma was replaying. So nowadays I have mentors as sounding boards. I can walk away. I just have more confidence in my ability to keep me safe and protected. And that was why the Illuminate Summit was such a big thing for me because it was really about me overcoming how many bugs, and I'm only just getting started. That was like the conservative version. Now that I've done that version, I'm ready to take it 10x. And what I am standing for, like sexual empowerment of women in business, that's ultimately what it is. It comes with a lot of shaming. slut shaming, this, that. Like, there's all this different stuff that will get thrown back at you. But once you know who you are and you know what the bigger picture is, again, I'm trying to tap into that resilience piece and just remember that I can get through it.
Wow, that's awesome. I really love that you've shared that, and I'm sure that that's going to be so helpful to a lot of people out there, especially to the women that are out there. But look, and men are not immune to this either, so I think that that's going to be a really valuable lesson for a lot of people. As we come to the end of our time together, oh my gosh, I wanted to I want to keep chatting, but I know that we've got deadlines here. We've got hard finishes, so we might have to do a continuation of this at some point. There's one more element of the Resilience Rocks theme that I'd love to wrap up with you. Resilience rocks being that resilience does rock, and then there's rocks are foundations and stuff like that. But one of my favorite resilience rocks is using music to build your resilience, and I know that music is a big part. I saw the clips from Illuminate and things like that. So I would love to know, what's your go-to song when you need to shift your energy in a really short period of time? What do you put on?
Oh, Let's Go by Neo, or like Firework, Katy Perry. Yeah, that always helps me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I've got a Resilience Rocks playlist on Spotify. So I will look those up and pop them on. I look forward to sharing your tunes with everybody as well. Before we say farewell for now, I'd love to know, where is the best place for people to connect with you? Obviously, I'm going to link the details for the next Illuminate Summit. But where can people connect with you if they would go, if they're thinking after this, oh my gosh, I need more Sam in my life?
I'd say go to Instagram, i.m.samantha.j, DM me book, and I'll give you free copies of my books there.
Awesome. Well, I think that sounds like a really good reason to reach out. So again, thank you so much for coming and chatting today. And I've been really looking forward to this. I had so much curiosity from following your stuff over recent times, and I'm really grateful for a mutual connection of ours, for the wonderful introduction. And again, this is the power of when people know what you stand for and who you are and your own personal brand and your own personal story, then it makes it easier for people to actually connect people together as well. So there's a lot of lessons for people to take away from this. So again, thank you so much. I encourage people to connect with you. And until we meet again on the next episode of Resilience Rocks Sales, be your best. Thanks for joining us again this week on Resilience Rocks Sales. Don't just listen though, take action. The best sales professionals are always learning. Head over to resiliencerocks.com now to go backstage and get the resources mentioned today to help rock your sales goals.